My name is Erica, and I'm 28 years old. This isn't a story I ever planned to share, but sometimes silence becomes too heavy to carry. What happened in my family house changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and blood. Before I go on, please, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds. It's one of those tales that starts in warmth and ends with fire. I grew up in a house where success was like oxygen. My father, Richard, ran a mid-sized construction company, and my mother, Vanessa, managed everything else. The staff, the image, the illusion. My sister, Claire, was the golden child. 3 years younger than me, with a kind of effortless charm that made teachers adore her and strangers trust her instantly. Me. I was the quiet one. The one who tinkered with code, skipped parties, and turned caffeine into lines of logic. From my teenage years, I knew I wanted to build something of my own, something that worked even when I slept. By the time I was 27, I'd done it. The app one created, LinkNote, was simple on the surface, a cross-platform workspace that synced visual ideas, documents, and project timelines in one shared digital space. But the way it used machine learning to predict workflow patterns was what made it explode. Within 8 months, LinkNote hit a valuation of $100 million. I'd built it from my bedroom, with 3 remote developers and an idea that everyone said was too ambitious. My parents didn't celebrate. They called it a distraction. I remember that night vividly, the one that changed everything. The dining room smelled like rosemary chicken and tension. My father sat at the head of the table, his glass of red wine barely touched. My mother's expression was unreadable, but her eyes, those cold blue mirrors, said everything. Claire sat beside her, pretending to scroll through her phone, though I could tell she was listening. Dad finally spoke, voice low and measured. "Erica, we've discussed this before. You've done fine. But this little app of yours, it's tearing this family apart." I blinked, confused. Tearing it apart. "It's mine, Dad. Built it. It's not even tied to the family business." "That's exactly the problem." Mom snapped. "You're supposed to be part of this family enterprise, not running off with your own ideas and making us look divided." Claire looked up from her phone, a soft smirk tugging at her lips. "You know, if she just let me handle PR for her app, maybe it wouldn't look so rogue." "Rogue," I repeated, feeling heat rise in my chest. "Claire, you barely understand what the app does. You didn't even know how to install it last week." Her smirk vanished. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. Erica, you're going to bring that company under our family's name, or you can walk out of this house." Mom's voice joined his, sharp as a blade. "Quit your job or leave this family." For a moment, the room was silent except for the ticking clock. I could feel my pulse behind my eyes. Then very slowly I smiled. "I think I'll walk," I said softly. Their faces froze, as if they hadn't believed I'd actually do it. I stood, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the door. Claire called after me, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You're seriously leaving over this? Don't be dramatic, Erica." I turned, gave her one long, steady look and said, "You'll see drama soon enough." Then I walked out. 3 days later, I got an email from my legal advisor. My parents had transferred majority shares of LinkNote's public-facing entity, the one I had created with their financial consultant, to my sister. They'd found a loophole, one buried deep in the early contract drafts I'd trusted their lawyer to file. Claire was now CEO. The news made headlines in the business community. Family-owned innovation. The Ozo Group acquires promising tech startup, LinkNote. I wasn't even mentioned by name. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't post a thing online. I just smiled, because I had something they didn't know. Before they pushed me out, I'd already begun working on LinkNote X, an advanced version that integrated secure decentralized networks and adaptive AI modules. I'd built it under a separate entity, one that never once connected to my name publicly. It was my private rebellion and my insurance. Over the next 6 months, while LinkNote struggled under Claire's flashy leadership, LinkNote X quietly gained traction. I partnered with a group of silent investors who trusted skill over surnames. Within 4 months, we had contracts with 3 international tech firms and a government research unit. The app grew faster than LinkNote ever did. Meanwhile, Claire's management style turned LinkNote into a circus. Marketing campaigns without substance, poor updates, and an exodus of developers who couldn't stand her tantrums. And my parents, they still played the proud sponsors, smiling for business magazines, pretending everything was perfect, until it wasn't. The first call came on a Thursday evening. "Erica," my mother's voice cracked through the line. "Please, you have to come home. Your father's furious, the company's. It's falling apart. The investors are threatening to pull out." I stared at the screen, silent. Then came another call. Claire this time, her voice trembling. "Erica, please. I know we fought, but I don't know what to do. Everyone's blaming me." By the weekend, even Dad called. He didn't beg, but his tone had lost its usual authority. "If you could just come in, maybe help restructure things." That was the moment I realized revenge doesn't always come from anger. Sometimes it comes from silence. I met them all that Sunday. The dining room hadn't changed. Same glossy table, same wine glasses, same ticking clock. Only this time, the air was heavy with desperation. Claire looked pale, her perfect posture gone. Mom broke the silence first. "Erica, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have." I raised a hand. "Stop. Don't say it. You already did what you wanted." Dad leaned forward. "You built that app. You can save it. We can bring you back, name you co-CEO." "Co-CEO." I repeated softly, almost laughing. "You made my sister CEO after I created everything. Now you want me to clean up the mess she made." Claire looked like she might cry. "Please, Erica. I didn't mean for it to go like this. You thought taking what wasn't yours would make you me." She froze. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small flash drive, placing it on the table. "This is what LinkNote X looks like now. It's already worth twice what LinkNote was at its peak. Your investors, they've already reached out to me. They want in." Their eyes widened, disbelief mixing with panic. Dad whispered, You went behind our backs." "No," I said evenly. "You pushed me away. I just walked farther than you expected." I stood up, letting the silence hang in the air before I said my final words. "You remember that family dinner? The one where you screamed at me to quit or leave?" I didn't forget. Then I turned and walked out. They called me again the next day. Then the next week. Then months after. Sometimes they'd leave voicemails that began with apologies and ended with tears. I never blocked them. I just never answered. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's success without them. Now, whenever I sit in my minimalist office, glass walls overlooking the city skyline, the LinkNote X logo glowing softly behind me, I think about that night in our family house, about how betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from dinner tables and people who claim they love you. And sometimes walking away is the loudest revenge you'll ever need. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe. Because what happened next? Well, let's just say revenge wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning. 6 months after that night, silence had become my peace. My company, LinkNote X, had crossed the $300 million mark and was expanding across 3 continents. The media called me the girl who built a tech empire from a betrayal. I didn't do interviews. I didn't gloat. I just worked, quietly, methodically, relentlessly. But success has a sound. And sooner or later, it echoes into the places you once left behind. One Tuesday afternoon, while I was reviewing our expansion deal with a Singapore-based firm, my assistant buzzed in. "Erica, you might want to see this." She turned her laptop toward me. There on the screen was an article from a tech blog. LinkNote sues LinkNote X for intellectual property theft. Family dispute turns legal. For a second I just stared. Then I laughed, a soft, tired laugh. Course, they were trying to destroy me. That evening, I received a formal email from their legal team, the same firm my father used for all his corporate dealings. The letter accused LinkNote of replicating proprietary algorithms from LinkNote, the same algorithms I had personally written long before they ever filed any patents. They wanted an injunction to freeze my company's assets and drag me into court. It was smart, I'll give them that. If the case gained traction, investors would panic, deals would stall, and my name would get buried under the word lawsuit. I called my lawyer, Daniel, a calm, sharp man with a kind of voice that could slice glass. They have no case, he said firmly. Everything you built was independently developed. We can prove that. I know, I said quietly. But that's not what they want. They want damage. Public damage. There was a pause. Then what's the plan? I looked out the window, the city lights blinking below like a constellation of choices. We don't fight them in the shadows. We fight them in the open. 2 weeks later, I appeared at the first hearing. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as I walked in. Press cameras flashing, microphones waving like restless hands. Claire sat across the room with my parents, her hair pulled back in a perfect bun, wearing that same polished, confident smile that once fooled everyone. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, pitying smile. You could have just come home, Erica, she whispered as I walked past. This didn't have to happen. I stopped for half a second, turned to her and said, Neither did your betrayal. Her smile faltered. During the proceedings, their lawyer tried to paint me as the estranged daughter who weaponized family secrets. He claimed I'd stolen intellectual assets during my time with the family enterprise. Daniel stood up calmly when it was our turn. He presented time-stamped files, emails, development logs, and a full Git repository history dating back 2 years before my parents' company was even involved. Then, just for emphasis, he played a recorded clip, my original product demo to a potential investor, clearly showing the same predictive algorithm they claimed was theirs. The courtroom was silent. When the judge adjourned for the day, I walked past my parents without a word. But as I reached the door, I heard my father mutter under his breath, You've changed. I didn't even turn around. No, I said softly. I just stopped apologizing for being smarter than you wanted me to be. The lawsuit backfired spectacularly. The tech press tore into them. Investors pulled out of LinkNote, their stocks plummeted, and within weeks, Claire announced her resignation for health reasons. My parents' construction business, already strained by their obsession with family branding, began collapsing under scrutiny. For once, I didn't feel joy, just release. One evening I got a call from an unknown number. I recognized the voice instantly. Erica, Claire whispered. Please, I just need to talk. I almost hung up, but something in her tone stopped me. Go on. I didn't want to file the lawsuit, she said quickly. It was Dad's idea. He thought if we pressured you we could force a merger. He said it was the only way to save the family name. I leaned back in my chair. And you agreed, didn't you? I thought maybe if we worked together again we could fix things. Fix things. I repeated. Claire, you tried to erase me. You stole everything I built, and when that failed you tried to ruin me publicly. Tell me, what exactly did you want to fix? She started crying. I miss my sister. That one broke something small in me. Because once upon a time I missed her too. But that version of me, the one who craved their approval, didn't exist anymore. Goodbye, Claire, I said quietly and ended the call. Weeks later, I received an invitation, hand-delivered on cream-colored stationery. It was for a family dinner. I almost laughed. The irony was too poetic. The same setting where everything had shattered, now dressed up as some fragile attempt at peace. But something inside me, curiosity, closure, maybe both, made me go. When I arrived, the house looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just smaller, stripped of its authority. The lights were dim, the air stale with regret. My mother opened the door, her face pale but warm. Erica, you came. Inside, my father sat at the head of the table, shoulders heavy. Claire sat quietly beside him, her eyes red-rimmed. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Dad said, "We lost everything." "I know," I said. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You were right, Erica. We should have believed in you." "Belief wasn't what I needed," I replied softly. "Just respect." Claire looked up, voice trembling. "Can we ever go back?" I stared at her for a long time. And then I said something I hadn't planned. "No, Claire. We can't go back. But maybe we can move forward, separately." She nodded slowly, tears falling. We sat in silence for a while. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, just a quiet acknowledgement of the ashes. When I stood to leave, my father said something that made me pause at the door. "You'll always be family, Erica." I turned slightly, meeting his tired eyes. "Family doesn't threaten you to quit your dreams," I said. "Family doesn't steal what you built. Family doesn't make you choose between belonging and becoming." And with that I walked away. That night I stood outside the house for a long time. The wind rustled the old oak trees, carrying faint echoes of laughter from a past that no longer existed. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. When I got back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. Dozens of messages, emails, congratulations. LinkNote X had just been featured in Forbes as one of the top 3 privately held AI startups of the year. Smiled. Not out of pride, but peace. Because I finally understood. Success isn't revenge. It's resurrection. The next morning I recorded one last video for my followers. "Hey everyone," I began, sitting by my window, the skyline glowing behind me. "A lot of you have followed my story, from betrayal to rebuilding to this moment right now. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Don't let anyone convince you that love means sacrifice. Real love, family, friends, or otherwise, doesn't ask you to shrink to fit their comfort." I paused, smiling faintly. "And if they ever make you choose between your dream and their approval, choose yourself. Every single time." Then I leaned closer, voice low and calm. "Oh, and one more thing, remember that dinner I told you about? The one where they screamed at me to quit or leave? They might have forgotten what they said that night. But I didn't." I smiled, reached over, and ended the recording. Fade out.